Cooper has tipped it before. Yeah, that was awesome. I actually caught it as it was spinning. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hello, my name is Shane Brody. Hi. I've been traveling around the continent now. Yay. I was traveling around the U.S. for a long time, interviewing people. I'm now in Canada, and I'm here to interview trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming, intersex, agendered people, everybody who's kind of associated with the trans label in some way, in their own identification, in their own identities. So I'm here talking to a couple of people, and can you please introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm a trans man. I'm 26, turning 27 this year, and I live in Alberta, but I'm from British Columbia.
Oh, okay. That's right next door, but I'm going to assume that it's a bit different. Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in terms of gender and stuff. But,
oh, okay. Yeah, let's get into that. How about you?
I'm also a trans man, and I'm 27. I'll be 28 this year.
Okay.
And I am from Alberta,
Okay.
but I was in British Columbia for like 10 years.
Okay.
And just recently moved back here. So, yeah.
So you also have both the experience of both provinces. Okay. Yeah. So let's just dive right into that. What is the difference between the two places? Because I have no idea. I'm one of those ignorant Americans who doesn't think outside of our own country.
So, I mean, I'll be honest, it's mostly Vancouver. That's the city I'm from, and
Okay.
not so much BC. In Vancouver, I was able to access trans healthcare really quickly. I'm actually a year and a half on T, and I was able to get on T, have top surgery, and change my name and gender legally within the first 6 months.
Do you want to mention the clinic that you went to? Or
Yeah. So that was the Three Bridges Clinic in Vancouver.
I asked that because I actually accessed some healthcare there once.
Really?
Yeah, they were really sweet to me. I needed some gynecological care, and I couldn't get it up in Alaska.
Yeah.
I traveled all the way to Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad they were good to you.
Yeah.
They were pretty good to me as well. So.
They were so good to me that they had me see a social worker when I was leaving because they were worried about me coming back to America.
Aw.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yeah, this was a while ago. Yeah. So tell me more about Vancouver.
Well, in Vancouver, it was, it's hard to talk about acceptance in terms of what that actually means.
Yeah.
Like concrete day to day.
Vancouver is really an international city too.
It is. It's extremely diverse.
Yeah,
and
very cosmopolitan.
yes, there's a lot of people coming in and moving away all the time.
Yeah.
So in some ways it's like trans people are more accepted. In some ways, everybody's too busy to think about it.
Okay. Yeah. Right, because it's also very hectic and sort of in terms of economics and also entertainment. I mean, it's very. Yeah, it's a bustling city.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and a lot less going on here. So
okay.
People have more time on their hands to think about what other people are doing, I guess.
Okay. Oh, okay. Get into other people's business because you're bored?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. All right. And we aren't in a small town here. I mean, it's not like we're out in the sticks or something, but you still find that. Okay.
We're pretty lucky here. There's other places in the province that have been having a much worse time with, like...
Okay.
protests and a lot of the kind of furor around drag story time.
Okay, so you're talking about right-wing sort of reactionaries and stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Do these groups have any names or anything? Usually in the U.S., we like to name these groups somehow. You know, I don't know what that helps with, but, you know.
Yeah, I think most people... refer to like the convoy type because we had the Freedom Convoy that blocked off all the streets
the
and blocked
truckers,
off the border.
right?
And it was a whole thing. And so unfortunately, the Canadian flag has kind of come to be associated with those convoy
really?
people. Well, they're using it just like, you know, some of them even use Confederate flags, which like make that make sense to me.
What?
But yeah,
what?
we're very lucky here though because where we live is actually considered like a drag capital. Like a lot of the queens from RuPaul's Drag Race tour here.
Okay.
And nowhere else. Okay. You know, there's a lot of that scene happening here, and it's been happening for a long time.
Okay. So a lot of gay bars, just a long history of that, or
there's one gay bar, but like it's really interesting. It's like drag is more accepted like at a mainstream event. You might go to a political event even
really?
this month and see drag queens performing.
Okay.
Lots of children's programming around the city, that kind of stuff.
So would you say that the gay community or queer or drag scene is more, I don't know, not really assimilated, but just more accepted in kind of the cis and straight world? Like it's more a part of that rather than just being in the LGBT community.
It definitely seems like something that more cis straight people enjoy, like, without kind of attaching meaning to it necessarily. Like, it just happens and people don't think about it as much here. Whereas I know in other cities, people see drag on a poster and just like that's the end of it.
Right. Or there would be only a certain crowd that was watching it. Yeah.
So it's pretty normalized here, which is great.
Okay. All right. Are you part of that scene at all, by the way? Because you're bringing it up.
Oh, I am not. No. I am simply attentive to what's going on around me.
I asked that because I know sometimes trans men did drag king kind of performances before any sort of social or medical transition or legal. There's so many different kinds of transitions. And then also, I actually met a trans man, very, very good-looking fellow, younger guy, who does, like, gay-style feminine drag.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was pretty awesome. Yeah. How about you? Are you connected with that at all, the drag scene here?
No.
Okay.
No.
You seem very butch. Am I mischaracterizing you?
No,
there?
you certainly are not mischaracterizing me. I'm definitely a bit butch.
You seem like a bro almost. Sorry if that's... No. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No!
But the guy you'd see at the university and,
The jock type.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Actually, not intentionally. People kind of assume I'm straight.
Yes,
but
you're
I'm
straight passing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I will say is pretty funny because anytime he goes somewhere by himself, we both have, fairly gender neutral names. People always assume that I am his girlfriend. Oh. No one ever assumes that I have a girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's pretty interesting.
So, I'll make a phone call and be like, oh, my partner and I, and they'll go, oh, Ms. And I go, no.
Okay.
And I'll correct them and they'll say Ms. And I go, no. So I guess over the phone I have a straight passing voice.
Even. Yeah. I do not, which is fine. But you do, definitely.
Yeah. I don't really know, why. Well, no, that's not true.
There's a lot unspoken here.
Thesis statement, if this will help you out.
Sure.
Okay. Thesis statement. Oh my God.
He was in a long-term relationship with someone who only recently came out as a trans man and was presenting as a woman for
all but the last 6 months of the.
Your partner then?
Yeah.
Oh, your partner.
My ex-partner.
Okay. Do you only date trans people?
I only turn people.
Oh, I see. I see.
Seems to be the story of my life.
Or they're just attracted to you.
There's something about me that makes everybody queer in some way.
That's right. That's right.
But yes, no, my ex and I were in a relationship for.
Even though you're a straight bro. Anyway.
Yeah. No, my ex and I were together for almost 7 years, and the first 5.5. Almost 6 years, they were very femme presenting, and I'm just trying to get my leg down.
Is he bothering you by the way?
No. Okay. I just wanted to make sure he wasn't interfering with the sound.
No. He can. He's been a special guest many. My dog has been a special guest many times. But if he's bothering you, I can send him.
Dogs.
Okay.
He's a delight.
Okay.
We've won a dog. We just can't quite get one.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was in a straight passing relationship for quite some time, which I guess makes me seem straight now, even though I've been in a homosexual relationship for the last 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and coupling that with growing up in a very strict church, probably lent itself to some gender norm behaviors on a subconscious level.
Sure. And what church was that? You don't have to name the specific church, but just the denomination or
It was a
something.
non-denominational Church of Christ.
Okay.
So really strict.
Okay, really strict.
yeah,
Okay.
like-
Would you say charismatically led, like kind of led by a preacher?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very fear-based. Very
Okay.
strict. No instruments.
Okay.
Women wore dresses.
Right.
Children are seen and not heard. Kind
Right.
of church.
Right. Yeah, that's unusually strict.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with the music, because I've only recently heard about that some churches don't do music.
We couldn't clap along.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
was quite strict. So being a really gender non-conforming child, I kind of had a rough time.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have to wear like dresses and stuff? Yeah.
I did. I did.
And did you?
Well, not so. When I was really, really little, I did, and then from age 5 till 11, I did not, or 5 till 9, I didn't.
Okay.
I was wearing jeans and t-shirts and
Yeah.
climbing trees and getting a lot of gossip stirred up in the church
Okay.
about me because of that.
Did you have long hair?
I did.
Okay.
Middle of my back, long
Okay.
curly hair.
Okay. Did you brush it?
No.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine.
No, I didn't. I tried to cut it myself a few
And
times.
it's a little bit curly,
It's quite curly.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I can imagine.
It was quite a fro if it wasn't maintained properly.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And then my mother made me promise to wear dresses every Sunday in exchange for hanging out with one of my friends one
Okay.
week. So I had to wear a dress from the age of 9 until I was excommunicated at 14.
Okay. Now, what was the hook from your mom? What was
Well,
that
if
again?
you want to go over to your friend's house, you have to promise you'll wear a dress without argument every Sunday, pretty much
Okay.
from now until forever.
So to see your friends, you
Yeah.
had to wear a dress.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's harsh.
Fit in or don't have a social life.
Yeah. Or
Right.
just be isolated with the family forever.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any relationship to a church or any, religious faith or anything?
So I don't,
Okay.
but my mother did. My mom was raised in a church a lot like the one that he grew up in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and my mom is also a lesbian. And
Oh.
so a lot of people hear that and kind of go, well, you must have just had the best coming out ever. I'm actually not on speaking terms with my parents.
Okay.
They took it really poorly. And I think that the influence of the church, it stays.
Even though she's a lesbian.
I think that there's a lot of people who, I want to say cis gay and lesbian and maybe bisexual
Sure.
folks who come out and that's their first door into the wonderful world of queerness and the queer community. And there isn't maybe the awareness that they were indoctrinated for a long time with, to hate themselves and to not have love for our community, I guess. And so I think that the influence of the church, even though no one in my family goes to church anymore, I still, my grandfather doesn't speak to me after I came out because of religious reasons. And,
Did you come out as trans first, or were you part of the LGBT community before then?
I've come out many times.
That's what I was thinking. I had a feeling about that.
Yeah, I came out first as bisexual when I was 9.
Okay.
And my parents said, that's not okay. You don't know what you're talking about. Again, at 13, came out as bisexual. At 15, I came out as transgender.
Okay.
But only after, trying to set it all up at my school and having my proper name used and accessing a
Okay.
binder and all this stuff. And
So at school, that was like a safe space.
school, it was interesting. There was actually a trans guy who was a year younger than me, and he came out at my school with his mom's support. So what they did is they went around to all the teachers and all the classes, and they explained, this is what a trans person is. This is how you treat us with
Okay.
respect.
And that was with that person had familial support.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, he
Yeah.
had his mom supporting him
Okay.
through that. They even went all the way up to the school board to talk about educational programs. And that was the first time that I was like, Oh, that's what my problem is. That's what's going on with me, because I never fit in. I was constantly bullied. I felt like an alien all the time.
What kind of time period is this? Because y'all are much younger than I am.
That would be 2012.
So this would be 2011 that I came out as trans for the first time.
Okay, and then how about you?
So I did the whole in and out of the closet deal as well.
Yeah.
Started calling myself by a boy's name, and just not correcting people about my gender if they assumed I was male when I was like 5.
Okay. You just went with it.
I really was very stubborn.
Yeah.
And I was told that's extremely inappropriate and you don't do that. So back in the closet I went.
So can you, I know we're skipping around a lot, but you guys are just so interesting. So can you talk about like a specific scenario where that happened? Like where somebody gendered you correctly and then it was found out. You know what I mean?
So the story that I can really bring to mind is I was at my grandmother's house. So I was in the States. And I was at my grandmother's house and I was playing in the backyard. And her neighbor was gardening. And he went, "Hello, young man, what's your name?" And I told him. I told him my boy name. And he and I talked for the rest of the week through the fence, no problem. Went to dinner at his house with my grandmother. And he starts talking to me and uses the name I've told him. And my grandma lost it. She gave me a really dirty look at the table. And we pretty much left immediately after. And she goes, you lied to him, you deceived him, you've embarrassed me, you can't behave like that.
And they were good friends.
And they were good friends. Okay. They were, older folks. I'm not sure if he was also in her church, but she's a very, very churchy person.
So this churchiness extends back.
Oh, several generations.
Okay, all right.
At least 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it the same tradition, by the way?
As far as I'm aware.
Okay, all right.
I'm as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
But yes, no, I was explicitly told not to deceive people by using that name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. And then your religious tradition was similar.
I didn't grow up in it. I grew up very secular.
Okay.
So it was mostly just culturally Christian things that I noticed in my mom and in our family.
Okay. Yeah. And you were talking about your experience at school. Let's get back to that.
Yeah. I actually have probably the best story that we have of how we met.
Okay.
So the day that we met was a year after I had come out, and I had basically been, I won't go into it too much, but I had been basically beaten into submission. None of my friends wanted to use my pronouns.
So you all have known each other for a while?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
None of my friends wanted to use my pronouns. I was being forced to go to swim practices and meets all the time, which was just awful. I swam probably 3 to 4 times a week all through my childhood and teenage years, not by choice.
Okay. But it sounds like you're probably a good swimmer, though.
Great swimmer. I was a lifeguard.
Okay, there you go.
So
do you think there's a way that people could, like adults could have accommodated you better with that?
Well, I mean, they could have, first of all, accepted that I was trans and used the correct pronouns. I think a swim binder probably would have been the next best thing.
I don't even know what that is.
It's just a binder that doesn't, tear your skin off when you try to take it off when you're damp, I guess. I never ended up trying one because I just stopped swimming until I got surgery. But a year after I came out, I was being referred to kind of by my boy name and girl name and he, him, and she, her, and all this and that. I was really tuned out. But
so you had kind of 2 names at school?
I had 2 names pretty much everywhere because nobody could agree.
Okay.
But we both ended up going to a GSA conference, a Gay Straight Alliance conference.
For the province. Sorry, I was going to say state. Province.
Yes, for pretty much the whole province.
Was that in BC?
Yep.
Okay.
And we we were in a workshop, and I hear some loudmouth going off about landlords and property and tenants' rights.
Okay.
And
Are you some kind of leftist or something?
something.
Okay.
And, you know, needless to say, I was head over heels immediately, and
Okay.
started having, you know, high school romance. But unfortunately, my parents thought he was turning me trans.
Oh.
So we couldn't see each other
Were
anymore.
you pretty out? Were you pretty out at that point?
He came out that day.
I came out. Yeah, I came out that day.
Oh, during the conference.
Well, sort of. So that day they did an icebreaker at the conference and asked, you know, name pronouns and favorite ice cream. Yeah, they were doing like a pronoun circle, and I didn't know that you could like choose your pronouns.
Yeah. How old were you then?
He was 17. I was 16.
Okay.
Thank you. I had to do math. And yeah, so I went to this conference, and there was a workshop for transphobia in sports that really interested me, and queer history 101. So I went to the first one, and it was led by the guy that came out a year before
At my school.
at your school.
Oh, great. That's so cool. It's like people are taking on leadership positions kind of immediately because it's needed, right? That's cool.
So I saw this guy leading this program, and I saw a 15 or 16-year-old kid who had been on testosterone for a couple of years and had facial hair and a deep voice.
Yeah.
And was
Going through puberty.
Was the first example of a trans
Yeah.
masculine person who passed that
Okay.
I had ever met.
Yeah, yeah.
And I went, oh, holy shit.
had you done any like internet search before then or anything like that?
I had
because you said like the first that you saw that passed.
Yeah, so I had a couple of ex-girlfriends who went, do you think you might be trans? And I went, I have no idea what you're talking about, growing up in the church. And I had
Okay.
been homeschooled for 7 years of my schooling.
A couple of girlfriends, like, okay.
Like, I dated as a lesbian before coming out as a trans guy. So the butch thing
Yes.
runs deep.
Yes, yes. Were you kind of a ladies' man?
Yeah. Yeah, you could say that.
I'm thinking that's the truth there.
Charisma.
Yeah.
But I had a couple of girlfriends, you know, ask if I had considered transition. And I really had no idea what they were talking about.
Okay. So they were more well educated than you were.
Much
Oh, that's
more.
great.
And actually my first girlfriend was the one I would call going, I think I'm a boy. And she goes, okay. And then the morning after, no, I'm just butch. It's fine.
Okay.
I can just live with being a butch lesbian. It's fine.
Yeah.
And she got sick of that, so she helped me name myself. But I had a few.
What was that process like? Like finding a name?
I wanted to keep the initials I had been given because
Yeah.
they're the same as my grandfather's.
Sure. Oh, cool.
And that was actually an accident on my parents' part, but I liked it, so
Yeah.
I wanted to hold on to that.
Sure. Do you have a good relationship with that person?
I didn't.
Okay.
I only met him a little bit as a child,
Okay.
and then again a couple of years before he passed, as a teen, when I was a teenager. And but his story is one of a very strong-willed and independent person who kind of just set off into the world as a young teenager, like 14, and became a master mechanic. So you know,
So you wanted to kind of
carved his own
be
path,
like him.
and I was like, yeah, I can do that.
All right. So your girlfriends are kind of helping you. They're giving you some information.
Yeah. So I had a couple of girlfriends, and then I had a classmate in grade 10. So this would be like 2011, 2012. And she goes, so are you a boy or are you butch? And I went, what are you talking about? And all class, are you a boy or are you butch? What are you talking about? So
She's very blunt.
She's very blunt. And she
should be a prosecutor.
she introduced me to her partner, who was a trans man, but he hadn't started testosterone, or he had just started like a week beforehand.
Okay.
And so none of the effects had started yet.
Okay.
And he was a very effeminate, very not super masculine, not really butch. And I was like, I don't think that's me. So I don't really know what you're asking here. I'm just me.
Yeah.
And that's all I said is I'm just me. And that's kind of how I sat for a couple of years.
That's really cool that somebody who was more feminine, though, still had a male identity, and they realized that, because oftentimes that's suppressed. You know, for somebody who's more masculine, people are like, oh, yeah, of course, you know. But somebody who's more feminine, there's often more trouble that people give them. Yeah. I'm imagining you might have something to say about that.
I mean, yeah. So when I came out in high school, I went back in the closet, and I kind of resent when people refer to it as detransitioning because it wasn't by choice. I didn't feel that I could survive in the situation that I was in.
And you were still a minor. You're still dependent on adults who
absolutely
maybe aren't looking out for you.
Yeah. And by the time I kind of became independent, I moved out of my parents' house at 19. I was not really there. I was really dealing with a lot of dissociation and depression and panic attacks and I didn't know what was wrong. But I didn't really consider transition again just because I had been basically told you're going to be unlovable. Nobody's ever going to like you. You're going to look disgusting.
Are these things that adults in your life had said to you?
I was told by my parents that if I transitioned, I would be hairy and gross and sweaty.
Okay.
I
think that describes me. But,
yeah.
But I don't think it describes you as much. But.
And it's also not the end of the world if it does. It just,
That's right.
You know, as a kid trying to convince my parents that I deserve to access medical care.
Yes. Yes.
It was really hard to hear that kind of stuff, and from teachers as well.
Oh, from teachers.
Just a couple. You know, I was able to get them a slap on the wrist from administration.
Really?
It was this one particular teacher who basically I needed help with math. I was failing.
Okay.
And I had to stay after school with this transphobic teacher because that was the option. I was failing, or you know, and he would kind of take the opportunity to ask me questions about why, you know, just why trans people have the audacity to do what we do. Because
okay, so you're going in for math tutoring, and some adult is asking you very personal questions about your identity. That sounds like non-consensual and really horrible.
Thank you. I really appreciate that because it was that. I even had a school counselor. Looking back on it, it seemed that he was frustrated. I was in there a lot. I was struggling.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. I mean, you had kind of a rough going. I mean, yeah.
But one day he sat down and he whipped out the DSM and he started asking me if I had genital dysphoria.
Okay.
And how I felt about my genitals and how I felt about my body and how I felt about how other people saw my body.
So not even instigated by you?
No.
Okay.
No, it was out of the blue.
Wow.
And I didn't go back and see him after that. And so I really just shut off. I became a really feminine person.
Yeah.
I was also dating men. So that was part of the thing is I'm like, well, the men who are attracted to me are straight. And I like men. Mm-hmm. I don't see any other way about this. I didn't think about it. Fast forward to the pandemic, of course. And both myself and...
That's a big fast forward.
It's a big fast forward, but it was such a large blank space. You know, I went to film school and it was kind of just like, ugh. But until...
So you just finished college and worked a little bit and... Okay.
I started programs and I dropped out and I didn't finish anything and I didn't
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Well, you know, artists often do that, so...
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So until the pandemic, when my girlfriend that I was living with began to transition MTF.
Okay.
At the time she was identifying as non-binary, but we kind of both realized that we were trans and started to transition in opposite directions at the same time.
Okay, so your boyfriend at the time was becoming a woman.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it was very much like a social transition at first for both of us.
Oh, of course.
And it was a long, most of a year after we self-referred to the gender clinic because neither of us really wanted to go outside. We didn't want to make new friends. We didn't want to do anything. We just wanted to sit still until we could transition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you would just be like at your apartment or whatever and just sort of self-isolating.
And it was the pandemic as well, so it was the perfect opportunity to sit inside.
Yeah. So in a way, it sounds kind of welcome, even.
It was very much at the time. I was like on the verge of like mental breakdown when the pandemic happened. I was honestly about to go and ask my doctor if I could get a medical leave for stress. So when it happened,
is that like a temporary disability sort of like you would get some payment or some government support? Okay.
Yeah, you'd be able to apply for EI and it would be usually a month to 6 weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, the pandemic happened, and I had all this time to think, and you know, we were being given assistance money by the government for most of the first year.
Good. In America, we got nothing.
I heard that.
Like $600. I was just like, oh my goodness.
Useless.
Yeah.
Completely.
Thank you, Canada. Anyway.
Yeah. So,
what did that look like, I guess, with two trans people living together and kind of going in opposite directions? Like, I'm just amazed. That should be a movie or something, you know?
Well, it really should be, because the next thing that happened...
You should write a book.
He could write several.
Yeah.
The next thing that happened is she and I broke up. He and I got together, I guess, again, after 10 years. And then we became homeless. And we went back to the apartment that I had shared with her, and the three of us all lived there together. So with the...
What was the pressure there that made you homeless?
My ex.
My
ex.
Oh.
I don't think we need to get into all of the gritty details.
Yeah, not that.
But it turned into...
I'm just curious because, I mean, I see a lot of visible homelessness in America. Mm-hmm. I see very little of that up here. So I guess I'm just wondering about big social pressure kind of things, societal pressures.
I think the main thing, you know, there was a lot of interpersonal conflict that led to it. Vancouver is also impossible to find an apartment in. We couldn't afford anything.
Okay. So it's just gentrified beyond belief, and you just can't afford it.
Yeah, we couldn't afford it. Okay. So living in a living room with my ex-girlfriend was the most affordable thing. I had surgery booked. He had surgery booked.
Okay. So by that time, you had gotten connected with the gender clinic. What is it? Three Rivers?
Three Bridges.
Three Bridges.
Yeah.
That's it. What was that like?
It was hard.
Did you find them on the internet kind of thing, or did you see a brochure?
Oh, I see what you mean. I had a family member who used to work there.
Okay.
So I knew kind of that there was a clinic there. I was aware of it. And also, as soon as I went looking online, the first thing everybody said, go to Three Bridges. Mm-hmm. They'll help you. It's informed consent.
Yes.
Like, they'll help you.
Yeah, they're very good, very proactive. Yeah.
And my ex-girlfriend and I went together to a lot of our appointments, to our blood appointments, to the pharmacy.
Oh, so they were accommodating for you for that way, too.
Yeah, they were
so good.
They were really lovely.
Yeah.
And, you know, to be able to transition at the same time as her, honestly, was a wonderful gift. It was really hard and at times dysphoria-inducing for both of us.
Okay.
You know, she'd go, look at how big they are. Look at this is wonderful. I'm so excited. Right. And I would not even be able to feel happy for her. You know, and it was really difficult in that way, but we had some good talks.
Also, you know, there's all that emotion too, because hormones are powerful drugs, right? Any woman, for instance, who's ever been through menopause knows that, right? Yeah. Any teenage boy who starts puberty, I mean, we all know that. We see that, what happens. So what was that like? Two trans people kind of going in opposite directions in small apartment, and three, I guess. Yeah, at some point.
I mean, I don't think anybody really enjoys the mood swings of puberty aspect. Yeah. It was the thing that I was looking forward to the least, really, because...
So you'd heard about it.
I was pretty well educated. You know, I had talked to him lots, and he's been on T 10 years.
Okay.
But in my first puberty... everything was awful. Everything was painful. All of the emotions were so devastating, and they were so much more than I could handle.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started T, I left the clinic skipping down the road.
There you go.
It felt like the biggest weight had been lifted off of me. And even when I did have these mood swings, I was actually able to feel them. I was able to sit there and cry in frustration. Or, I started crying a lot. A lot of people say that they can't cry after starting T, but I was just a faucet.
Interesting.
I think it was good for me.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
well, it sounds like it filled a need, you know, maybe, because if you're actually better able to deal with your emotions, that's great. Yeah. And then you've been on it forever, it sounds like.
Yeah, I basically started testosterone in 2012, less than 6 months after meeting this guy, through the guy that ran the
It's okay.
the workshop at the conference.
Okay. Yeah.
He actually started supplementing me with his own supply.
Okay.
Because
Which is illegal.
which is super illegal, don't do that.
Don't do that.
But
Disclaimer.
at that point in time, I was at a really awkward age where the youth services wouldn't accept me. I was too old.
Oh.
And the adult services said I was too young and I needed adult consent, and I didn't live with my parents. I was couch hopping.
I understand. Yeah.
So
I was awarded the state of Texas, and then I was sort of classified as emancipated, and it meant that, but it meant I couldn't get records of that, and so I was still classified as being under the influence of my parents for a really long time in terms of the government, like for financial aid for school, which is a big deal in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it was so terrible because I had no support at all. I think this is actually a common problem with people. It's a terrible, terrible system that we have down there. In general.
I think it is. I think it is up here as well, because like my issue was like my parents are accepting of who I am, but they didn't really want me living with them.
Okay.
They weren't anxious to get me back under their care. When I said, "Hey, I want to move out,"
were you just too much trouble, or I don't know, questioning their religion? What were you doing?
I mean, my parents split, and then my dad left the church, and I had been living with my dad until I moved out. And so the church really had no aspect in it at all. But I said, "Hey, my girlfriend is moving to Vancouver. I want to go with. I think it's a good opportunity for me to spread my wings." I get out there, and less than a week later, I'm going, "Can you come get me? I made a terrible mistake." And he goes, "Figure it out."
Okay.
Figure it out.
Okay. Bootstrap it.
Yeah. In Vancouver at 16.
Right. And that's the big city.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of stuff there. Like, there's a lot of prostitution. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of drugs. Yeah.
And homelessness.
Yes.
Nobody bats an eye.
Yes.
And, I was there. I was working 2 jobs. I was going to school full time. My girlfriend was in university. And I go to this conference. I come home and I go, "I think I need to transition." And my girlfriend goes, "Well, I'm a lesbian, so I can't be with you.
Okay.
So pack your bags and leave."
Goodness gracious.
That day.
Wow. That sucks so bad because, I mean, it's like you have these relationships with people and then suddenly they're just like, "I'm just dropping you."
Yeah.
If somebody, people have done this to me, so this is a leading question, but what do you feel about that? Like, when people have done that to me, I always question whether they actually loved me before then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there has to be some basis to a relationship. If you suddenly just are like, "Nope,
this is a step too far and I'm done with this and I don't even want to talk or try." What really grinds my gears is that particular person transitioned later in life.
Okay.
And my father supported them through their top surgery.
Okay.
But did not support me through mine.
Wow. Did you have to pay out of pocket?
No. Thankfully, the province we were in BC, they cover it.
Okay, great.
So I was able to get mine covered by the
When you
province.
say support, what do you mean then?
I mean, my dad let them stay at his place and supported them through the recovery period.
Sure. Yeah. Which for some people can be quite extensive. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was just kind of like especially because it happened so many years after I had broken up with her, this person had let me go be a couch hopping homeless teenager, that my dad would turn around and go, "Yeah, you can, I'll take care of this."
Have you ever talked to him about that? Like,
It's not worth it.
Okay, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
All right. Yeah. What do you think? What are you thinking?
Well, I was thinking about a couple of things.
Yeah.
I was thinking particularly that he was so failed by every system.
Yeah. And people around
and
you.
all the people around him.
Yeah, and you too. I mean, just bad things people were saying to you.
Yeah, it was really hard. I have a really hard time coping though with the fact that my parents actually came in the way of him accessing support. My school was a school that was designated low-income students.
Okay.
Lots of support, lots of access, lots of homeless youth who attended school there.
Right.
And because my parents, to me, I was told that they thought he was a bad influence. They thought he was turning me trans. They called the principal and said stuff about him and had him banned from the campus. He was trying to apply to the school so that he could get resources. And
This is like high school, right?
This is grade
high
11.
school.
Oh my God.
Grade 11.
And
They're
he wasn't,
treating you like, I mean, and criminals shouldn't even be treated like
No,
this.
exactly.
But they're treating you as if you're like some really bad influence and
Yeah, and
you've done something wrong. I mean,
and like I was working 2 jobs and still getting good grades, and
Yeah.
like
and they don't want you to be in high school.
And the only reason I was trying to get to that high school
Yeah.
was because after we had met at the conference, my school had learned that I didn't have parents in the province because I had received an injury and I had to go to the nurse's
Okay.
office, and they go, "Where's your parents?" And I go, "Well, they're in Alberta."
Okay. Do they need to sign stuff or something? Or?
They wanted to send me to the hospital for an
Okay.
ankle for an X-ray, and it wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
I was like pretty sure it was sprained. I just wanted some ice, and they were like, "We need your parents. We need this. We need that."
Okay.
They blew it all out of proportion.
Right.
And then they
So
found out
you
that
knew
I was
what
alone.
I was talking about when I was saying that. Okay.
So
Yeah.
they knew that they found out that I was alone, and they go, "Well, we can't have you at this school without parental consent." And so
Goodness
basically
gracious.
that school kicked me out, and I went, "Okay, I'll go to the school that he
It
goes to."
sounds like they were looking for some sort of legal thing that they could go, oh, now we can get you out.
the school board and system there is so overburdened and underfunded
Yeah.
and just, I mean, it is everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was just, it
But
really
it-
disappointing.
But more than that, I mean, it sounds like they were looking to do something to you, like to get you out.
My parents were, specifically. My parents were in contact with my teachers, the administrators of my school. They were threatening to have me committed to an institution,
Oh, yeah.
to call the police on him.
Yeah, I got committed, I'll tell you. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I'm still in recovery for it, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is like what you said earlier about like, did they even love me before this? That really struck me.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just think I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah.
Like when people suddenly cut relationship like that. I mean, it's good if it's like from abuse, like fuck that. Pull that portcullis
Yeah.
right down. But if people are pretending that they love you or whatever it is, or they say that they do, and then suddenly it's just cut off, I just wonder. It makes me wonder. It makes me feel crazy.
Well, it's something I've thought about a lot because my grandparents recently, I came out to them last year,
Yeah.
and since then it's been like, Merry Christmas, and that's it. I don't hear back from them if I send anything.
Did you feel close to them when you were young?
I was quite. Not so much when I was young, but like as a young adult, I lived really close to them.
Sure.
I was the grandchild to walk the dog,
Okay.
house sit, do all that stuff.
Okay. Were you really good? Like,
I
were
was
you a good
really
kid?
I worked
good?
at City Hall.
Yeah. There you go. So you were kind of a model kid there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it, I had long brown hair. I wore a dress every day. I wore like nice ladies' shoes, and I worked at City Hall, and
Yeah.
I was the perfect granddaughter. And all of a sudden, all of that is replaced by, this is a big change for us, and this is a lot. And for me, it was, well, who did you have a relationship with?
Yeah.
Who did you think that person was? Because that person is me,
Right.
and I look and sound different, but I am the same person. I'm actually much happier.
Yeah. And you're from them.
And I'm from them,
Yes.
and so it is hard to take that when it feels like somebody that is your blood is basically like, well, I liked it better when you weren't happy and I didn't know about it.
Right.
Because like, it's not that I think that they never loved me. I think it's just that the granddaughter was a really like, the eldest granddaughter was a really like meaningful role for me
Yeah.
to be filling. And as soon as I wasn't filling that role, they were scared and upset.
Do you think you'll ever get back with them more, or do you want to try? I mean, or is that just like off in the distance? Like you have other things to do right now.
I mean, I'll be honest. In a lot of ways, I don't want to put myself through that,
Yeah.
but I also don't really want to put them through that either because they're
Really? People can learn at any age.
You'd think so. You would
They
think so.
can. They can. I know some people who are trans. I just talked to them a couple of days ago. They're in their late 60s, and they just started testosterone. They're twins.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's always possible. Yeah. If you're alive, you can learn.
I mean, I'm open to it.
Yeah.
It's mostly just, you know, I don't even know what would like what would come of that. If I sit down and I think, what was our relationship before?
Yeah.
And I go through and I think of all these things. Okay, well, I was doing that because I wanted to be a good girl. I was doing this because I wanted to be a good granddaughter.
I understand. I was a good girl too.
Yeah.
Doing everything.
It's really
doing
hard.
More. Is there anything I could do for you?
Exactly. And it's so hard being like going from being like
Not you.
Yeah, you're rebellious. No, like it's hard going from like.
No, I actually appreciate your rebelliousness.
Yeah, so. Like from being a good girl and you know, I wasn't necessarily like constantly pursued by men. I wasn't viewed as like the most attractive.
Oh, I see.
But like I was a nice girl.
Okay, yeah.
And it is really
marriage
hard.
material.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to go from that to like people think you're a thing. People think you're an it. 12-year-old boys are asking you if you're a boy or a girl on the street. That was a big adjustment for me.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. What you seem like you want to say something about that, the it aspect.
I mean, growing up in the church I grew up in, like there was actually a group of boys that would, you know, he, she, or they, but they're not they in a nice way. Like
this was before that.
Was this like in the early 2000s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And back then, kind of, it was still on the trail end of like, oh, that's so gay or whatever.
Oh, we heard that in school
all the time.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I wasn't in school.
Oh, right.
But
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were a homeless youth, and
well, and I was homeschooled when I was from grades 1 through 7.
Oh,
or
okay.
Grades 1 through 6.
Okay. And that in itself can be really isolating.
Extremely isolating.
Was it a religious education, like creationism kind of?
Yeah.
business?
Yeah. It
Okay.
was learning about ancient Mesopotamia and how to speak ancient Greek.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool, but
do I remember any of it? No.
Okay. But if you went to a divinity school, that would work out very well.
Yeah.
But that's very narrow. How did you catch up on your education, by the way? I mean,
well, I'd never graduated.
Okay. Is
And
there
that
a
was,
high school equivalency kind of test that you take here?
You could have. I could have. I basically just chose not to at a
Okay.
certain point.
Okay.
You know, 17, working full time, and I failed Math 10.
Were you doing like retail jobs or labor jobs? What were you doing?
Kitchens.
Okay.
I worked retail. They didn't like the fact that I was gender nonconforming in my wardrobe. They wanted me in a skirt, and I said absolutely not. And I showed up in a suit that looked better than the manager's, and suddenly I worked in the stockroom.
Okay. All right.
But
I think that's pretty common, actually. People who look a little bit different often gravitate to, you know, the places where people won't make comments, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up in kitchens where everyone wore the same thing.
Yeah. I worked as a baker, you know.
Yes, you know the chef whites.
all night by myself. Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I worked in kitchens for a very long time, and now I work in warehousing.
Okay.
And I did a couple of years of labor through the pandemic, but
Okay.
yeah.
I'm sad that you didn't complete your education. Do you think you'll get back to that? I would like you to. That's my bias. Sorry.
I don't really see a point.
Okay.
I have never been able to pick one thing and go, I want to do this for the rest of my life, and I know
Sure.
I'll be happy at it, so
Sure.
why would I put money into making sure I can do that formally?
But are there programs that kind of help adults who've had this kind of disruption here or maybe in another province, you know?
It's very location dependent.
Yeah.
Here, a lot of the kind of adult life skills stuff that I've
Yeah.
seen is like renters' rights.
Okay.
You know, how to use a computer.
Right.
Stuff
and
like that.
that stuff is important.
Super important.
But,
super
yeah.
important. But it's
In the U.S., we have what's called GED courses.
Yeah.
So it brings people up to speed. In fact, I've been a tutor for that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I got a GED, which, what does that stand for? General Education something. Anyway, it's the high school equivalency.
okay. Yeah, we have something like that here.
Yeah.
It's just it's not easy to do. It's
Okay.
You know, it takes a lot of time out of your day, and
Yeah. Yeah, and you're working a lot.
And I'm working, and you know, the job I have has benefits, so I don't see currently. I don't see a reason to work harder.
Okay. Okay. And there's, well, I just in my heart of hearts, I'm sorry. I just hope that you are able to get, you know, access to some sort of educational program. But, that's just mine. And I'll probably just cut this or something. It just hurts my heart. I mean, I guess it's because I've worked with a lot of people who have been struggling like that. And I also had disruption in my education. Mm-hmm. So I know that it's possible to go on. So
it was the failing math 10 like 4 times in a row.
Sure.
And the last time was at a 49.5%.
Yes.
For not attending a course that didn't exist at the alternative school I was in.
Sure. You have to find the right tutor.
Yeah.
I'm a very good tutor, by the way.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, let's move on, because I think that's probably a sore subject a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it obviously plays into poverty. It plays into like life choices, like big ones, and hope, that sort of thing.
I think one thing that's kind of tangential to this that a lot of people don't think about is driving.
Oh.
So neither of us had parents who were willing to pay for lessons, let us borrow their car, teach us how to drive, take us to the tests. Yeah. So I only got my driver's license as like a gift from my aunt. I got some driving classes as a gift from her.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. Like, how do you deal with taxes, or just how do you budget? Yeah. How do you save money? How there's like, or cook, or
how do you keep house? It's all this stuff that when your family resents you for being the way that you are, they don't really want to teach you, or at least my family didn't really want to teach me a lot of stuff.
Yeah, basic life skills.
Yeah, I wasn't taught how to manage money. I wasn't allowed to get a job or have a cell phone or have internet access or watch movies.
Do you think that's part of the religious aspect as well? Just an isolation? Yeah. Because homeschooling is...
It's all about control.
Yeah. Some people do it... I think that a lot of people do it as a sense of control. But I think some people do it in more of an anarchist sort of unschooling aspect, where they can actually give a better education to their kids. But I think most of it is more like your situation, where it's very isolating, unfortunately.
Well, I think my mom wanted it to be the learn what you're passionate about and do well, but she wasn't capable of facilitating that.
Yeah, right.
So, it's all well and good for me to go on Google.
Yeah.
But if I have no structure and nobody to, encourage me and guide me, I'm just going to end up on the weird side of the internet.
Yeah, the best situations I've seen are from parents who are fairly educated themselves, or they get together with a cohort of other parents and sort of do a co-educational kind of thing. And they do it with educational theories too. It's not just haphazard.
Yeah, and like my mom did that, but with other members of the church.
Right.
So it was 5 or 6 church families all doing Thomas Jefferson education. Yeah. Teach the kid what they want to learn, but also force feed 6 different Bible subjects. Right.
6,000 years of the earth. And all that. Yeah.
It's only been around for like 5,000 years. What are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I took a break. Mr. Cooper needed to go outside. We've been trying to hydrate ourselves, and he's been more successful at it. And he loves these two. I just love it. He's putting his head under this fella's arm during the interview. Oh, yeah. Everybody loves Cooper. Yeah. He's such a good boy. He's often my special guest here. So I was thinking, we've been talking about your families a lot. Is there anything more you'd like to say about that right now, just to kind of round out that subject?
I mean, the thing about it is that it is messy, and that there are so rarely these like
unusually messy too.
Unusually messy, and it's so hard to come up with something that feels nice and neat and has a bow on it.
Yeah. And you all are very young still.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not that distance from what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the unique things about being trans is kind of this. You get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there's the possibility that my grandparents could be open in the future, but right now they're not. And I have to hold both those things at the same time in order to be open if the time comes. Right. But also not to be devastated if it doesn't.
That's so much work.
It's hard. I've been to a lot of therapy. I spent a lot of money on that shit.
Yeah. Does, by the way, speaking of therapy, does the province that you're in right now, Alberta, does it have decent medical services, do you think? I mean, compared to Vancouver?
No.
Okay.
So there's actually a doctor shortage. The doctors are leaving right now because our government is extremely conservative, and making
the province.
The province, yes.
Okay.
The provincial government has been making many cuts to healthcare to the point where most people don't even have a GP or a family doctor.
Okay. So it's done. See, I keep wanting to say state, province to province,
Yes.
rather than federal.
Yes.
Even though it's federally funded.
Parts of it are, yes.
Okay, parts of it are.
Yeah. So that's, they have conflicts about that, about what is covered by the federal government and what's not. But when it comes down to the average person, here in Alberta, it takes an obscenely long time to access gender affirming care. We are the only reason we have an affirming doctor is because we were both on HRT when we came here, and I reached out to a community organization and said, can you please help us find a doctor?
Okay.
That's it.
So if you were starting out, or possibly people who are in that situation, what would happen here?
Out here, most people would have to go to their family doctor. You would have to go to your family doctor or your general practitioner and tell them that you're interested in starting hormone replacement therapy. We haven't been here very long, but my understanding is that many doctors here are not comfortable with that, and they'll refer to an endocrinologist. So that's the waiting time. That's people. I mean, I have been referred to an endocrinologist, and that was 4 months ago. And in BC,
you're just not able to get an appointment.
Well, here you're not able to really get an appointment. In BC, the wait times are like, for gender affirming care, it was 6 months, and then I got everything all at once. It was surgery assessment, hormone assessment, like letter to change your gender, like all in 2 appointments. Okay. So, they
but
really. But
here it sounds
they really need. It's something
more piecemeal, for one thing.
People are not. There isn't like the same kind of community, like, I guess, access to medical care. It's people.
No gender clinic.
There was one, and I believe it recently closed, but many people didn't even know that.
Was it part of a university system or something like that, or was it independent? Like Three Bridges is kind of independent, isn't it?
So Three Bridges is part of the Health Authority, which is a division of the provincial health.
So it's public.
Yes, it is public.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it's all public.
Wow.
I mean, you can choose to go private as well, because some people just can't tolerate the wait times. And you can go private and pay for it out of pocket.
Right. Like $10,000 for
$10 million billion.
Yes.
For anything.
Right.
And here it's just a little bit less of a choice for some people, because the private options, there's not a lot, and the public options take so long. So some people even fly to BC to get surgery and stuff like that. Yeah. And they'll pay out of pocket because it's faster and like years faster.
Oh, wow. Yeah. If they were to go to BC, would they be able to access those public resources, or is it dependent on like their residency? Like we have residency things in the US. I don't know how it is here.
So for general health care, like HRT, they would not be able to access that, because you have to be registered in the province that you live in for your health card. However, surgeons operate both publicly and privately in BC. I also worked for the Health Authority.
So you know all the ins and outs. Yeah. Okay.
So someone from here could go and so our surgeon was Dr. McKee, and I'm going to give him a shout out because he's awesome. He's fantastic surgery, fantastic doctor.
Awesome.
And he's also the fastest surgeon like in Canada. So he does like 4 surgeries a week or something.
4 surgeries a day.
Oh, a day. Okay. So some people from here will fly out and they will see him at his private practice. And then he also has the public practice where he nobody pays out of pocket for that. And you have to go through a system. You have to get referrals, and you have to talk to Transcare BC is the government.
To be registered in order to get...
Yes, for free, to be fair.
But you have to be registered in order to get care in this particular way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's steps to that.
Yes, a lot of steps.
And if you don't go through those steps, then I'm assuming that you can't get the public funding for it.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Wow, that's a little bit of a nightmare. I mean, even though they are paying for it, that's a little bit of a nightmare.
It is very stressful there,
Yeah.
Especially because it's kind of oblique in exactly how you're supposed to go through it. The websites for the government and stuff will often say, well, here's what you have to do to be legally recognized as your target gender. But we're not going to tell you where to do it or how to do it. The organizations that offer free assistance with like legal ID change, I never heard back from them. Their wait lists are so long that they just don't even they can't help the community.
Are those like what we would in the U.S. call nonprofits that are doing this?
I guess so.
Community-based organizations.
Yeah. The other organization that I will also give a shout out to is part of the Provincial Health Authority, but is the Catherine White Holman Foundation.
Okay.
She was an amazing trailblazer and advocate. In Vancouver. She was a social worker.
Okay.
Lived like through the AIDS epidemic and all that stuff, and just was really a role model for a lot of people. So now there's a small foundation set up to help people access healthcare, to help with some of like the complications that we've been talking about, like having to register here and having to fill out this thing here and send it to that person,
or family support, and if they're going to help you, and all that stuff. I'm very interested in that, what you just said about that social worker, because I do know that Vancouver has a lot of problems, but also it seems like they also address the problems in a way that's if you compare it to the US, we always do punishment, Whereas in Vancouver, they offer a lot of services for people who are having trouble or things that are more complicated. I'm not saying it's perfect, but that's what I see more of there versus, maybe here or in the U.S. It seems like Alberta is more like the U.S., which kind of sucks for y'all.
They call us the Texas of Canada, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to be like Texas. Sorry.
Sorry, Texas. Sorry.
Well,
We know there's lovely people in Texas.
Yeah, but a lot of those lovely people are leaving too, or thinking about it. So, yeah.